Hi, and welcome to Hill and Ponton's Veterans Disability Blog. I'm Natalia Joffrey, the company's COO.
Hi, and I'm attorney Allison Reddick.
So today we're going to be talking about migraines. A lot of our clients suffer from migraine headaches, and so I think, Allison, it would help if first you just gave an overall view or idea of what a migraine is.
So a migraine is a type of headache. There are multiple types of headaches. There are migraine headaches, tension headaches, cluster headaches. What a migraine headache is, it's basically defined off of its symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
So a migraine is usually a more severe form of a headache. It has a long duration. It can last hours to days.
Mm-hmm.
It usually focuses on one side of your head, and the pain is moderate to severe. The symptoms that are associated, which differentiate it from other types of headaches, are you can experience sensitivity to light, sensitivity to noise,
Yes.
Nausea, vomiting, and that is one type of headache. The other types are cluster headaches, which, as it sounds, cluster to one side. But what's interesting about them is they can move.
Okay.
So, and that pain is more of a pressing pain.
Mm-hmm.
And then tension headaches are kind of like a band over across your entire head.
Mm-hmm.
Those headaches, they have shorter duration, and the pain is more moderate, and they usually don't have those associated symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
Migraine headaches also can affect your ability to engage in physical activity, whereas tension and cluster headaches usually do not.
Mm-hmm.
What is also interesting is cluster headaches usually are more in men, and migraine headaches are more frequent in women.
So when you say cluster versus migraine, the cluster and the tension headaches don't fall under the same migraine umbrella.
So in the terms of the VA, they do. They're all rated under the same criteria. It's just basically what your doctor is diagnosing you with.
Okay.
The criteria is labeled migraine, but you can still get service connection for tension headaches, cluster headaches, migraine headaches. You can get all three. You can get one or the other. Or if your doctor diagnoses you with something else, it's all based off of your diagnosis.
And based on what you were saying, you can see very easily why someone would be unable to work if they have these frequent migraine headaches, because when you're talking about sensitivity to light, like even being in this room, like that would be an impossibility. You normally need to be like in a dark room.
Absolutely.
Everything's off. Even the sound of a TV on might bother you. I know that the residual light from the TV could bother you. If you're nauseous, or vomiting, makes it very difficult to work.
And I think that what is really difficult when assessing this is because unless you've experienced them, you don't know how severely they affect your daily activities.
Yeah, I know that a lot of people, for example, I'm one of them, you lose sight in an eye, or you start seeing words start blending together, really odd symptoms. It almost feels stroke-like when it starts to happen. And I know a lot of people have what they call auras, where you start seeing lights or some kind of trigger that lets you know it's coming.
What happens when I get migraines, I get tunnel vision. I can't see, or like you said, you'll see flashing lights. It is very similar to stroke symptoms.
And I think that when our veterans have that happening, they know it's almost like take cover, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like get in a dark room, don't eat anything, pull off the road, stop driving.
On the head.
Yep. Yep, because they know it's coming.
Yes.
So talking about all of these symptoms and what it really is like in real life. So the VA schedules you for a C&P exam, a compensation and pension exam. What should you know? What should you do to prepare? What's going to happen in that evaluation? Because really, if you're not having a migraine actively in that moment, what are they going to look at? How are they going to evaluate this?
In all honesty, if you're having a migraine, you're probably not going to be able to go to the exam.
That's true.
Majority of the time, you aren't experiencing a headache or a migraine during the exam. So it's really important that you share your symptoms and how it affects your daily living. When you go to a C&P exam, they will ask you questions, what type, if you have a migraine, cluster headaches, what type of pain you have. Is it throbbing, pressing, one side of the head, both sides of the head? When I think about going to a CMP exam for migraines, I think of three things. I think of duration, frequency, and severity.
Okay, that's important. So duration, frequency, and severity.
Yes.
So duration.
How long do they last? Do they last 30 minutes, an hour, 4 hours, 3 days? I've had a migraine last for 3 days before.
Wow. Yeah, that's brutal. Mm-hmm. Frequency.
Frequency, how often are they occurring?
Okay.
Do you have it once a day, once a week, multiple times a week, once a month, every other month?
Mm-hmm. And then severity.
How severe is the pain? Mm-hmm. They could ask you on a pain scale of 1 to 10. Mm-hmm. They'll ask you if you have what are called prostrating attacks. And basically what prostrating attacks are, it means you basically can't do anything. You have to lie down, like we said, in a room until the migraine passes.
I think that one of the things that you hit on in terms of severity and how bad is the pain, one of the problems that we encounter is that when people go to an evaluation, because they don't have the pain at that time, they forget how bad it is, or they'll say, well, right now I'm like at a 2 or I'm at a 0 or, it's not that bad. Shouldn't they focus on the way it normally is, on the severity on their worst days?
Absolutely. And I think that is something that gets very confusing because a lot of veterans have multiple types of headaches. They'll have the migraines and they'll have cluster headaches every day. So the cluster headaches, they'll say, oh, I'm about, a 3 or a 4, but it's those migraines that you're having once a week, once every other week, once a month, where you're a 9 or a 10 and you're completely incapacitated laying in bed.
Right. The cluster headaches maybe are very disruptive to your daily life, but the migraines are what really are keeping you from working.
Absolutely.
Right? Okay. Can you tell us about secondary service-connected migraines? What does that mean? How does it work?
So for a migraine to be secondarily service-connected, that means that you have a service-connected disability that causes migraines or causes headaches. Okay. It doesn't have to be migraines. It can be headaches, any type. Conditions that I can think of would be traumatic brain injury. Mm-hmm. That would be something that could cause a symptom of headaches. Right. Neck injuries. Yes. If you have an injury in one of your cervical spine, that could absolutely cause tension headaches, cluster headaches, migraines. Mm-hmm. Other types would be vascular conditions because of your blood flow.
Like hypertension?
Hypertension or I would say certain vascular heart diseases that your blood isn't flowing properly, peripheral vascular diseases, things like that. So the blood isn't flowing properly and that affects tension and the blood flow to your brain. Okay. And I think you could even make a case for stress if you have PTSD or something like that. Mm-hmm. The stress that your body is having on a daily basis can cause headaches. I mean, if your doctor says that, I absolutely think that's a possibility as well.
Okay. How does the VA rate migraine headaches?
So, like I said before, any type of headache, it's rated under one criteria, symptom criteria. So basically it's rated on the frequency, how often you're having them. To get a 10% rating, you're having a migraine or a severely debilitating headache about once every 2 months. Okay. For a 30% rating, you're having these prostrating attacks about once a month. And then for a 50% rating, that's the highest. You're having them at least more than a month, multiple times a month, and it's causing severe economic inadaptability. And basically that's a fancy way of just saying it's affecting your ability to work.
Yeah, you really can't work. Mm-hmm. So I didn't know that. So for migraines, it's capped at 50%?
Yes.
Okay, so you really can't get 100%?
No.
Okay. So along those same lines, tell people what TDIU is, and can you get it because of migraines?
Yes. So migraines are, as we said, capped at 50%, but as we've discussed, they are extremely debilitating. Yeah. So total disability based on individual unemployability is basically saying that even though your percentages don't add up to 100%, you can still be paid at the 100% rate because your conditions are so debilitating that it affects your ability to work.
Okay.
Now, 50%, you aren't schedularly qualified. You either have to have one condition at least 60% or a combination of conditions that add up to 70% with one at least 40%. So in order to get TDIU for migraines, you have to have other conditions involved, or you can try to get extra-schedular consideration. And I think that is something that happens often because we have many veterans who their only disabling condition is migraines, and they can't work. So you can still get individual unemployability solely based off migraines. It's just you have to provide more evidence and show that you are entitled to an extra-schedular consideration.
What is that extra-schedular consideration?
So basically what that means is if you don't meet the numbers that they want, but you have provided enough evidence that it's disabling you to a point that you can't work, they take your case to what is called the Director of Compensation. And over there, they look at the evidence and say, okay, even though they aren't schedularly qualified, all of this evidence shows that they are unemployable based off of it.
Okay.
It's just an extra step.
Equals the severity or
yes.
Okay. All right, great. What would you say are common issues with migraine claims?
I would, like we discussed during the CNP exams, stating how the frequency and the duration and severity, I think those are very important things to discuss that aren't discussed, and sometimes you can't depend on the questions that the CNP examiners are asking you. You need to go in and be honest and tell them how your symptoms are affecting you at their most severe. I think for migraines, especially service connection, if you have that incident in service or that condition in service, a current diagnosis and a doctor and nexus stating that your current condition is caused from service, it's a pretty simple thing to get service connected.
Allison, what do you think about keeping like a diary or something to that effect, a journal? You know, when you have the headache, what type it was, what problems it caused, anything like that?
Absolutely.
Do you think something like that would be helpful?
I think even if you're not trying to get compensation, I do that. I will document when I have a migraine so I can realize what is contributing to it. But especially for compensation, anytime you're having a headache, frequency, duration, severity, it's important because one, you can tell your doctor that and they can document it and put it in your actual medical record. Or you can write a statement which can state all of that information. You can even send your diary and show, look, this is how often I'm having migraines.
Wow, that's great. Okay. This was extremely helpful. Thanks, Allison. Okay. We're going to keep talking about other, obviously, veterans-related topics. But in the meantime, if you have any questions, you can feel free to visit our website, call our office, and we hope you join us again next time.
Thank you.